So I'm gonna record this now and leave it to you, Yaver, so you can start sharing your experience on how to build a more accessible solution in Power Platform. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Stefano. I will just share my screen. Stefano, looks like I can't, maybe my participant screen sharing is disabled. Looks like maybe we will need to enable it.
Yes, you are the host now. Try now.
Okay, okay, it's good now. Stefano, I have shared my slides. Please confirm me once if you can see my slides.
Yes, all beautiful. Go,
Okay,
go for
that's
it.
great.
And obviously, whoever is attending, if you have any questions anytime, please feel free to
Yes,
type
yes,
in the
please.
chat or unmute yourself and ask directly in voice. It's just us, so it's a small group. Let's keep it nice and fluid. Okay, go.
Thank you. Thank you everyone who have joined. This our today's session is about accessibility. Generally, we will discuss what accessibility is, why it is important, and how to make a project accessibility compliant. Particularly, since my experience was around Power Platform, so I will be sharing my experience. But I think whatever we will discuss, it will be applicable to any project, no matter whatever technology something is being developed, it will be applicable. So let's begin with that. Our agenda for today, basically, it will be a little concise and short presentation. I will be covering three things basically. In first part, we will discuss what accessibility is and why it is important. Second will be how to achieve or how to make our application accessibility compliant. I think I need to admit. Okay, someone was waiting. The second part will be how to make a project accessibility compliant. And the third part will be accessibility in Power Platform projects. So that will be overall today's discussion. With that, before I proceed, I will, I will encourage all attendees. If you like, please be social. There are two ways you can help us in these gatherings. One is you can use these hashtags, and on social media you can tell others what mutually we are discussing or learning. And of course, the other is through your valuable questions. And if you have something to add, with that, let's proceed with the topic, which is accessibility. This is a slide, and in this slide, I have collected a few thumbnails of some community leaders. And the obvious message is these are different people. They belong to different backgrounds. Their first language might be different. They might be belonging to different cultures. But the good and beautiful thing is, for one cause, which is Microsoft product and Power Platform in general. So they all work together for, they love Microsoft products and they are working to promote Microsoft products. So this is really a nice concept. And in our corporate world, we have a particular word, diversity, to describe it. Even though we have differences, but we work together. But unfortunately, not all the time differences are limited to just first language or just just our backgrounds or country we were born. A few times, these differences are based on our natural abilities as well. And unfortunately and painfully, I am talking here about disabilities. It doesn't mean people who have disabilities they don't perform well, but the thing is that the point which I want to make is that is another kind of differences which we need to address. As per one of the surveys from World Health Organization, around 15% population of world live with some sort of disability, and it is around 1 billion people. And almost 1 in every 5 individuals have some sort of accessibility requirements. It doesn't mean they have some disability, but accessibility requirements are even associated with people who physically don't have any limitation. With that, let's move to our first part, which is accessibility. What is accessibility and why it is important? First thing is, accessibility can be categorized in 6 different areas, and a person can have one or more type of disabilities, and these disabilities can be partial or complete blockage of functionality. And the takeaway from this slide is, people who have disability, to perform their daily life works, they need to use some sort of app or device to perform daily life works. And good thing is, it is not something very new. We already have services and products developed around us, considering that in our mind. So we frequently see many things specifically addressing people with disabilities. But does it mean uh, from accessibility only people having disability get benefits? It's not. The fact of matter is, even people who don't have any type of limitation, they also get enjoy the benefit of disability, a benefit of accessibility. A few benefits are, pe- a few type of people or situation in which accessibility consideration benefit us is, sometimes people have temporary disability, and sometimes it is about situational limitations. Similarly, as with the with older ages, abilities are abilities change. It This list keep going. Sometime people who are using mobile or smart devices, inexperienced technology users are another group of people who get benefit from accessibility compliance. And of course, people consuming information with specific or difficult terminologies. And last point is, people who may be having a little low literacy skills. So overall, the message from this slide is, with accessibility, if we consider accessibility, not only it will help to the people who have disabilities, but also to the general public. And if I conclude, if I summarize what accessibility is, accessibility is just a consideration when we are designing our services or products. We basically try to design considering people with additional needs in mind, so maximum user can get benefit from our services and products. Why we should care for accessibility? Of course, all over all over education, over consciousness, over social responsibility, over theologies, everything teaches don't to be discriminate. But it is not just these ethical reasons. In most of the developed countries, law also prohibit us to be discriminating with people based on disability. So that is another reason why accessibility is important. And this is the benefit are not just limited to ethics. Basically, if a business start paying attention to accessibility, they get some business benefits as well. For example, their audience, they got a wider coverage of audience. They are providing better services, less complaints, and of course they are helping in building a better society. So they are gaining positive PR as well. So that was a little introduction to accessibility and why it is important. Next, in a couple of slides, I will go through and summarize how to achieve accessibility. W3C is a organization which is basically working for web standards. And same is the organization which maintains or work for accessibility standards. And the web content accessibility guidelines, or WCAG, is the main standard which is used, though in some countries there are a few other standards as well, but Microsoft and many high-tech companies are working following WCAG. So that is the standard. In WCAG, we have two versions. One was WCAG 2.0 that was released in 2008. The latest one is 2.1, which was released in 2018. And in latest one focuses on mobile and smart devices, cognition, and low vision. And it doesn't mean like these are progressive. It doesn't mean like after WCAG 2.1, WCAG 2.0 is deprecated. 2.1 is on top of 2.0. So if we want to achieve 2.1, we will also be achieving 2.0 as well. Another way I have summarized under these two standards, there are three different levels: A, AA, and AAA. So whenever a project or a government department is working, they usually say we will try to comply our project. Uh, Stefano, I think someone is waiting in the room. Please, if you can help with that. There are three different levels of. I will need to. I'm
I don't see anybody. Okay, yeah, thanks.
okay. I think since I have control, it might be appearing
Yeah,
just on
yes.
my screen.
Mhm.
Thank you everyone who recently have joined. We are discussing accessibility standards, and a few minutes back we have covered what is accessibility, why it is important, and for the part which someone has missed, we are recording and recording will be available. So I was telling there are three levels of accessibility: A, AA, and AAA. Under A, A is the most lenient or easy to achieve level. On top of it, we have AA, and AAA is the most advanced and most complicated to achieve. How difficult or easy one level to achieve is, this is a little maths and breakup. For A, WCAG, un, under WCAG 2.0, there are 25 guidelines or rules which we need to comply or care for. And with WCAG 2.1, there are 5 additional guidelines. So this total becomes 30. If a project or a team is working for AA standard, they will need to be covering or looking for overall 45 guidelines. And with AAA, there will be 66 guidelines. As I mentioned before, WCAG is the sort of documentation or rules which we need to uh, follow. So these details are available online on W3C website. So what basically these documents are containing? These are just imagine these are detailed documents, and they are sort of main reference material. If we go to any of the documentation, we will find that is first of all very comprehensive and helpful documentation. We can find what is intent of a particular guideline, what are benefits, some of the examples, and what are a few ways a guideline or standard can be achieved, and any technical term if they are referred in documentation, the detail of those technical terms as well. So if someone wants to learn more, or someone is working on a project where they need to be looking for a certain guidelines to achieve or implement those, WCAG documentation will be the central guideline which one will need to go. Uh, Testing tools are very important when we are dealing with accessibility, because with using testing tool we find where we are lacking or which guidelines a project, a website, or an application is not following. So, in a nutshell, there are more than 100 tools available, but not all of these tools are commercial. Some of them are free as well, and they are available in different varieties. Like some of them are browser add-ons, some of them are available as a software as a services as well, and there are of course manual and automated tools too. Uh, and with that, I will conclude what we have discussed until now. Uh, we have discussed WCAG, or WCAG is basically central, the main standard which for an application or a project or a service will try to follow if they wants to build something which complies the accessibility standards. It has two versions, 2.0 and 2.1, and 2.1 is of course more recent. The way we achieve these standards are we hire someone or we do test or do accessibility testing ourselves. We find where we are lacking, or which guidelines we are not meeting, and then we try to use WCAG documentations and see to follow those, what are options or what solutions we can use. And those documents are really comprehensive. I have got a chance to work on a Victorian government project where that was the process. And since that was a government project, so they hired a separate agency for that, and that agency was basically doing testing and providing us their results, and based on their results or and recommendation we were doing fixes. So overall, whenever we need to meet those guidelines, that will be the process. We can test ourselves, or we can hire someone, an individual, or a company who understand what accessibility testing is, based on test results which will happen using accessibility tools. We will need to improve a few things. And once everything is, we meet a certain standard, we can declare, we can put that certificate sort of sticker on or logo on our app or product if we need to tell this application or this website is accessibility compliant and what standard it is. In for learning more about accessibility, one links I will be providing later. But one thing which I mentioned before was Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG. That is the document. But for learning generally about what accessibility is, Web Accessibility Initiative is again from W3C. That is really a good learning material to learn about accessibility and why it is important. So I will refer these two sources, and links are I'm providing in later in a slide. And it brings us to the last part of our discussion, which is accessibility in power platform projects. And as I said before, since my experience with accessibility was particularly with power platform projects, and if I specifically can say, that were Dynamics 365 customer engagement or model driven apps. But I think my experience, my guideline will help in any way. If whatever technology, whatever application one is using, these things will apply same way. Before going to further details, I will show a few things, a few observations which were reported to us like these are issues. For example, if you have worked with Dynamics 365 customer engagement, you will recognize that was the sort of classical user interface. And this particular issue was people who need a bigger screen, or they try to zoom to make it something readable. After a certain stage, text and a few parts of user interface, they become start shrinking and they don't remain readable at all. I just have shown these here in with highlighted. This particular example was we used to have these sort of user interface elements, And that thing particularly happened when we were using tab keys. Expectation is pressing tab keys, control should be going through next, and after that to the next control. But what was happening here was tab was just moving between these controls, like it first moved to this one, then second button, and go back to the first control. So that was a issue to fix. If you see, that was again when someone who have requirements to use application just with keyboard. If we tried, whenever a user was trying to pressing just tab keys, after certain tabs, headers and the bottom part of table or grid, they become apart. So they were not in line anymore. And for a for a few users, it was not clear and making sense what has happened. Similar issue was here with grid. If uh, for a column we don't have any value and we just press tab, and if, for example, if we are using a machine readable device, in these sort of situations there was no value or no text to read, but still it was trying to read and staying here because some element was showing like there is something. So these were a few examples, like what sort of issues we were facing. And since Dynamics 365 customer engagement is a product provided by Microsoft, and for a few things we don't have control to fix those issues. So what we were doing many times, we were requesting Microsoft support to fix these things. And reply from Microsoft was maybe move to say goodbye to legacy web client and move to the new user interface. Even though legacy client was good and very popular, it I think this happened, this was 2 or 3 years, almost 3 years back. That time most of the applications were using legacy web client, but that that web client was, that user interface was not good for in terms of accessibility. So life become easy and better when we started converging our applications to unified user interface. And I will now show the same issues which we were having previously. Everything was fixed in new user interface. You can see with even with zooming and trying to see a bigger area, text was coming completely, it was still readable, headers were fine, that separation was not happening. If something is have no value, uh, a machine reader was not staying here considering it still have something. That issue was also fixed, and that was it. And if you are working with model driven apps or Dynamics 365 customer engagement or any applications which are built on top of model driven apps, so these are a few benefits of unified interface that is more close to, that is better for accessibility. It has around more than 100 keyboard shortcuts, and it works better with screen readers. And overall user experience, it's great. This is a quick guideline, like if you are, since my working is more with Power Apps, and we have two type of Power Apps, model driven apps and Canvas apps. Luckily Microsoft has provided for both type of apps, a mechanism to get started and know where we are lacking in terms of accessibility. If we are working with a model driven app, we have solution checker. Solution checker can report us if there are, solution checker basically report us not only accessibility uh, improvements, but also generally many other type of improvements as well. And for Canvas apps, we have app checker. App checker particularly is good. It shows in details like where we have where we are lacking or we need to do something to fix accessibility issue which can cause a problem. I think we will not have a time, but maybe sometime later I can show I can run a few tests. I can show like a screen reader and how applications will, how what sort of experience difference will be if our application is accessibility compliant and if we are not considering application to make it accessibility compliant. So if you are working with model driven apps or canvas app, please pay attention on these checkers and follow them, these instructions. Generally, if you are a user from Microsoft products, particularly Microsoft Dynamics 365, you might want to know what accessibility level these native apps have. And next slide will is a really a good source, which is Microsoft Accessibility Conformance reports. I think Microsoft recently have last year has this is basically a center or a central area of Microsoft website where Microsoft have published reports on their different products and their different services, like in terms of accessibility, where they stands, if there is some like they are missing some criteria or something don't apply to those applications. So that will be the main idea if we need to know about Microsoft products and if you want to see their documentation for accessibility. Good thing is Microsoft has recently updated these documentation last year, and now these reports are with WCAG 2.1. So that is really a good time. Microsoft is doing a lot of work in this regard, and latest reports are available. Now, if you are working with Power Platform, what are a few things which we need to test for accessibility? These are portal or web resources, Canvas app, model-driven apps, native apps, and if you are a Power BI developer, of course, our reports and dashboards. But if you are not working with Power Platform, of course, generally web application or websites, any apps which might will be running on maybe on smart devices and even with computer softwares as well. Now, these are a few learnings which we had, I got from experience. If you are working on a project where accessibility compliance is important or that will be a requirement, these are a few guidelines or my learnings. First thing is start early. With us, what happened was after 2 years of project development, we come to know this project will be accessibility compliant, and that was a little late stage. My feeling was if we would be aware from the beginning, it would be much easier. Second learning is team training, and in team, I will say our testers, of course, developers, consultants, everyone who is involved. So they might have a little understanding what accessibility is, why it is important, and how they will be dealing with accessibility. I think similar to what I'm presenting, at least a presentation of like that can help with that. What we decided later, we made accessibility as a part of our definition of done since we were using agile. So in any way where we can implement and make it a sort of mandatory that a certain things while development, we should make sure things are accessibility compliant. I think it will help. And progress gradually refers basically uh, don't try to aim. Of course we should be aiming high, but it should be gradual. If we are aiming, okay, we will be achieving triple A standard, and it will be hard. But if we start with, okay, let's first aim for single A, once we achieve that, we will gradually go for double A. I think it can be a little easy. And ask for help is in community, there are many resources available. Even from Microsoft, there is accessibility help desk available, and they can also help. And I think that is pretty much it. That is what I was aiming to present. These are a few links which I referred in my presentation. These since it is recorded. you can search from a search engine as well, but these will be available in recording as well if you need. Okay, I think there is.
Yeah, yeah, but and it would be good maybe if you also post it on the Meetup directory as a text, so it would be a little bit easier to take them from the slide.
Sure.
Any question?
Okay, there is one question. Is there a certification exam about accessibility? Mason, I'm not aware if there is any certification exam, um, but it is there might be. But my understanding is there is no certification exam because still this is something under evaluation and being developed. So yeah, so basically, as per my knowledge, there is no certification exam as of now.
So
Uh,
yeah, just to add on this, you're correct. There is no certification for individuals, so people don't certify themselves on any accessibility technology. There is a process of self-certification for an app, so you can verify that an app is accessible through different tools. But it's not something that issued from the government or something. It's sort of a self-assessment from as far as I know.
Thanks, Stefano. Great input. And I think there is another question. What is process to achieve accessibility certification for an app? Uh, uh, Stefano, I think is reference to what you have mentioned. Are you aware? And if there is any like process or what stages one will needs to go through?
I think in one of the website, the W3 org with the accessibility guidelines, there is a link to tools for acquiring sort of a verification or certification on the app. So what you do basically is you upload well, it's not you upload. You enter the link to your website, and then it will this tool will check for accessibility issues. A little bit how you showed for Power Platform, right? So for Power Apps,
Yeah,
that the accessibility checker verifies that there are specific tags. It will simulate the execution with a reader, verify there are inconsistency. At the end, this is a little bit technical, so it means that it's going to look for the specific tags, but nothing can replace a real verification of your app
exactly,
with
exactly.
no users that use some of the readers, and then they can confirm whether that works or not.
Yeah, exactly. Great. And if I can add further, maybe if you are developing an in-house application and you want to make it like accessibility compliant, I think that will be the process will be the same. Someone from your team should be doing accessibility testing. You can hire an accessibility tester, or if that is a bigger project, you can hire a consultancy firm that can provide these services. They will use some testing tools, and based on test results gradually they will need to do improvements. And once application development is complete, everything is complete, and still there can be situations when we may be lacking a few things, like it may not be 100% compliant, but in those situations recommendations is we should try to work out and find what can be alternate way for that. So I think that can be a process if it is a in-house development or organization's own application. There is another question Ryan has asked: what can we do to increase accessibility support in our communities? uh, Stefano, I think you can address this.
What can we do to increase accessibility support in our communities? That's a good question, Ryan. I guess from my experience, I worked recently on a project for building a bot with some accessibility for the visually impaired people, and it was difficult to find a developer with that experience. And now I don't know if your question is specific the developer community of the broader community. But I feel like accessibility is an attribute that is considered as at the end of the process if the customer is asking for it. If you're developing an app for the government, or for there is a specific requirement, non-functional requirement for accessibility. I think this is a wrong approach. It's a bit like what we think for performance or for security. Or we'll think about performance at the end, we'll think about security at the end. Instead, we should design application with security in mind, with performance in mind, and with accessibility in mind from the very beginning. So there is a process of education of the solution architect, the software architect, the developers, for making sure that they are aware of these uh, of the WAI and whatever other guidelines exist from the very beginning. And the purpose of a meetup like this and the work that Yaver does, and I do to some extent as well, is to generate this awareness in the broader community. And then there is an aspect also of awareness, visibility, as in who actually knows about this and who can actually do it. That is probably lacking in the industry. Not there is no certification exam, as we mentioned. There is these are guidelines, they're not even rules. It's important to understand the difference, so it's not something that is imposed, but it's something that is recommended to do it. So there is a lot that can be done, and I welcome also activities like Microsoft that promote these guidelines to the broader audience. All right, cool. Anything else?
I think that is all. I don't see any other questions. Thanks, Ryan, John, Mason. These were really great questions. And if I can quickly add, I think I remember 3 years back, that was my first time when I started looking to accessibility. But good thing is, I think day by day, more and more, Ryan, more and more people and even community groups, they are acknowledging the importance of accessibility, since it is also sort of a part of inclusion. Like, we can't exclude few people based on their disability. So that is another good thing. Uh, there are a few resources available from Microsoft as well, if you are a Microsoft developer. And if you are again Microsoft developer, event is happening, I guess, in Scottish Summit. I think it is in a couple of days, on weekend, on Saturday or Sunday. They have a full track on accessibility as well. So if you are interested, or please have a look. You might find something as per your interest. And that is pretty much all from me, Stefano. And with that, I will say thanks to you for helping out, for organizing this, and thank you everyone. I think there is another question. Yeah, yeah, that is all from me, Stefano. Over to you.
Beautiful. Thanks, Yaver. Thanks everybody for
Thank you,
attending,
Stefano.
and we'll see you next month. Have a
Thank
good
you
one.
so much, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.